Piers Morgan continues to have zero idea what's happening at the United States southern border. He keeps invoking his old deporter-in-chief line, right? Obama deported more people than any other president. And that's not even true, by the way. Therefore, there's a liberal hypocrisy complaining about Trump's deportation policy when that's really leaving out like every single relevant piece of information that you could possibly leave out. And Mehdi Hasan's going to talk about it with Piers here in a second. There's some stuff Mehdi says I disagree with, I think, in this section, but we'll see.
Okay. How many people did Obama deport?
Okay.
No, you know it's one of my favorite questions. But what was striking was not just that she had no idea, which she admitted. She never bothered to find out, even though people like me have been telling everyone the number for a long time, to expose, actually, I think, a liberal double standard on this. But secondly, she said, I don't care. She didn't care how many people Obama had deported.
Nor should you. You can deport 5 million people. You can deport 10 million people. And it can be a good deportation policy, right? You can be deporting violent criminals. Like, you actually are deporting violent criminals. That's a valid thing. You could be deporting people who just showed up at the border, don't have asylum claims. You deport them in an expedited removal process. That's as long as they go through their due process of not sending them back to a place where they're in danger, as the INA gives them the right to do that. Then there's no problem there, and you can deport however many people you want through that process. And Obama did. He used the Secure Communities Act to essentially use ICE to go after anyone who had any interaction with law enforcement. He didn't only do violent criminals. That was more of a Biden thing for interior enforcement. But he essentially used that act, that infrastructure, to go after anyone who had any interaction with police. And he also used Operation Streamline, which is more of a Bush thing, and it tapered off toward the end of Obama's administration to ramp up the amount of removals versus returns at the border. This is a very important delineation. When Piers Morgan says deportation, he doesn't realize that's not a legal term. There's removal and there's return. Removals, if you count by removals, Obama has the most removals of any president. But if you go by removals plus returns plus expulsions and put that all under the umbrella of repatriation, then actually, Clinton deported 10 million people, Bush deported 8 million people, and Obama deported like 3 or 4 million people. So the process became totally different. Returns became removals. That's why Obama's numbers were so high, and Trump's numbers were also quite high in his first term. They were on par with Obama's second term, I believe. I think he got like 1.4 million or something, which is about right, seeing as he served for half the time that Obama did. But we also have to, actually, I'll just let him talk and I'll expand upon it once they're done.
Even though he's by far, pro rata, the biggest deporter of people in American presidential history. So, my question for you about this would be, okay, I don't happen to think Trump has been that authoritarian. I think he pushes the courts as hard as he can.
Why?
But then he reigned.
He violated the court orders like 57 times. Like, there was a Washington Post analysis. There were like 400 lawsuits against the Trump administration. 165 of them he lost. 57 of them, the Washington Post found he violated or otherwise ignored. These were courts chastising him for his freezing of funds, for his rights violations with ICE, etc. Name anything you really want. He ignored these court orders from lower courts, from district courts, and he did that at a rate of 1 for 3, right? 150 he lost, 165 he ignored 57 of them, and that is contemptible. It's contempt of court, obviously highly immoral, because you're ignoring the judicial branch. That is a very important branch of our government.
And he reigns back.
He's defied court.
The people that have been deported, where there was a big blow up and contention about it, they've come back.
The most obvious court order he defied was probably the South Sudan one, or the Venezuela one, where they told him to turn around the plane. But the South Sudan one, they were told to not deport these people to essentially places that weren't listed in their removal orders, and that later it got stayed. It's still in the process right now. But at the time, the court said to not do that, and he just blatantly. That his administration blatantly ignored that and sent them to a place where they didn't even give the people a chance to object to it. They were like, "You're going to South Sudan. You were not ordered removed here, but the country you were ordered removed to isn't accepting you. So here you go off to the most war-torn, like poverty-ridden country on the planet. It's like it's a horrible situation there.
And they're facing due process. That's not what an authoritarian does.
Not true.
He's cleaned
That's
up.
just not true, Piers.
Well, on the southern border, for example, I presume you would praise Trump for stemming the number of people coming.
No one in their right mind who has even researched this a little bit would praise him for the southern border, right? His whole strategy was take away as many statutory rights that people have, and that is after doing everything in my presidential authority given to me by the INA to absolutely revoke any of the previous administration's policies as far as parole and temporary protected status go, and using my administration's extensive powers to revoke visas, to do anything. We give the executive a ton of power for border stuff, and he went way beyond that even. Refugee International, if you want reasons to hate Trump even more, they did a great report on people who had legitimate asylum claims come to the border, and essentially the border said, Trump issued an executive order, we don't give out asylum anymore. We do interior asylum, we don't do defensive asylum, right? We do affirmative asylum only. Because in his executive order, which you should read, I think it's 14159, that might be wrong, that's probably wrong. I know it starts with 141. But it said anyone involved in the invasion across the southern border of the United States is ineligible for any provision of the INA, even if it's statutorily guaranteed, that would allow them to stay here. This is a flagrant violation of international law, of U.S. law. He's rewriting acts passed by Congress in an executive order, and his excuse for that was that the INA gives the president broad authority over who can enter and who cannot enter, but he doesn't. But that the courts have ruled over and over again that that's relating to optional programs like visas, not internationally sanctioned programs that are statutorily guaranteed in the INA no matter what, like asylum. So that's the main issue here. Nobody can do asylum. So the border, there's nothing going on at the border. It's a ghost town because no one has any rights there. It's a horrible situation. And it's absolutely contemptible. And Biden, while his interior policy was quite good, he only went after violent criminals, right? Both him and Trump had to deal with less cooperation from sanctuary jurisdictions, even though some of them do cooperate for violent criminals. But he kept it. He didn't deport people who stole toothbrushes or got arrested for crimes they didn't commit, like Trump did and is doing. And very different from Obama, who deported obviously anyone the Secure Community Act flagged, essentially, and sent out to ICE. So that's the basic deal with why Trump's deportation policy is horrible. Biden actually went after asylum quite a bit, and Obama didn't touch asylum. Biden essentially had Remain in Mexico with the CPB-1 app, except Remain in Mexico, you actually get your asylum case going first. You wait outside Mexico for it to complete. This is, you wait outside Mexico in a 9-month-long queue where Border Patrol is only assessing 1,000 people per day. And then once you're through that queue, you can then pursue your asylum claim. So it's kind of like Remain in Mexico flipped on its head. And then obviously Trump came in and shot that program in the face, and all those people with asylum claims were told to, F off, right? So I disagree with Biden's policy, his 2023 executive order, 2024 executive order, that essentially limited people's ability to seek asylum in the ways that the INA says they can. Between ports of entry, that is one of the ways, no matter if they haven't, done so in a country they've transited across. That was his 2023 executive order, right? No matter if they, had access to the CPB-1 app, but they chose not to use it. It doesn't matter. They can still seek asylum at ports of entry, between ports of entry. So that's basically what that is.
Illegally there, or would you not?
No, I don't praise somebody who tortures people in detention centres, and I don't think you should either. And you said a lot of things that weren't true. With regard to Joy Reid, who's a good friend of mine, I believe that what she meant... I'll tell you in a second. Let me just deal with Joy Reid. I believe Joy was talking about...
By the way, the torture he's referring to is the alligator Alcatraz, which people are saying there's the food situation infestedness of the food, and the lights on 24/7 policies, and just the inhumane treatment is de facto torture. I don't buy using the word torture for that, but it's just poor conditions, not regulated nearly enough, just for what we've heard out of there. But Abrego Garcia got sent to an actual torture facility in El Salvador, so that's always fun.
Caring because it's not relevant. I mean, Joy can speak for herself, but that's my interpretation of what she said. It's not relevant. Obama, first of all, and you tried this gotcha on me, I've written pieces in The Guardian attacking Obama's deportation record. It was a very bad record. And I've been critical of Joe Biden's immigration record.
It's not very bad. His interior enforcement was a little bit too much. He mostly scaled down on workplace raids, but he he deported many people who just did minor crimes or just were, got a traffic violation, whatever, right? Any interaction with law enforcement. Biden's poor policy was on the exterior enforcement, whereas Obama's poor policy was on interior enforcement, and Trump gets an F- on both, breaking the law on both, right, consistently.
I was on MSNBC attacking Joe Biden's immigration record for being too Republican-esque. But that is not relevant to right now, because when we're talking about deportations, we're not just talking about numbers at the southern border. We're talking about what ICE is doing in what's called the interior of America, in LA, on the streets of New York, grabbing people off the streets, masked agents with no badges, no IDs, unmarked cars, grabbing American citizens, doing racial profiling of Latino gardeners or customers at Home Depot, putting them in detention, disappearing them like fascist countries do. When American citizens, veterans, a disabled veteran in LA, Piers, just disappeared off the street for 3 days. His family don't know where he's in. That is Pinochet Chile style.
But do you
stuff,
agree?
Right? I'm not saying it's the same, but I'm saying that is reminiscent. Okay. No, hold on, Piers. You had a long thing about. I just need to.
ICE has a very deep-seated Fourth Amendment issue right now. Like, there's a Southern California judge in LA or whatever, wherever the jurisdiction was, said that they were absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, arresting people who looked like they came from anywhere in South America. And that's so unconstitutional. Courts have ruled that again and again in the 70s and 80s. We know that's unconstitutional, highly immoral. And that's mostly what he's referring to. And workplace raids, to an extent, are a Fourth Amendment disgrace. Because you're just going in blind to a lot of these places. Obama's workplace raids, to the extent that they existed, were very, very calculated. You need to have intelligence and some kind of reasonable suspicion that relates to immigration law, federal immigration law, not just the color of people's skin, right? And you can get that reasonable suspicion through paperwork or auditing the business or asking the business or whatever, sending someone in to talk to the business. You can't just do it willy-nilly like ICE is doing right now on the marijuana farm, etc. So it's just a bad interior enforcement. Exterior enforcement, exterior policy, as in people haven't entered yet the rights that they have. I think that's even worse. Well, it's a tie. I'll say it's a tie. I don't like interior enforcement by ICE. I think we should respect sanctuary jurisdictions. It's the thing that they want. It's their complete right to not deal with civil immigration law that's supposed to be enforced federally. So up to you which is worse, really. But ICE is definitely affecting people's lives the most. But the people we hear about are in the United States, not the people that are suffering outside because of our exterior policies right now. Now, I should say the asylum thing. A judge completely shut that down a few weeks ago. I don't know if the Trump administration has responded. I don't think they've appealed it, but I don't. They have no ground to stand on there. So this might be the end of that asylum policy. I don't quite know yet, but hopefully it is.
With your points, and you come back in. Okay. He has defied court orders. The Washington Post just did a study the other day of 160 lawsuits brought against him. They've defied 1 in 3 of those lawsuits. He hasn't given due process to people in El Salvador. People were tortured, Piers, in El Salvador. Kilmar Abrego Garcia talks about being sat on his knees all night long, being beaten, being deprived of food.
Well, actually, a lot of people have said that's nonsense.
I did. You opposed George Bush. But it's not nonsense. What are you talking about? Congress members have gone to Alligator Alcatraz in Florida and talked about 35 people to a room.
Who cares if it's nonsense, right? The fact is you have an administration that's so, frivolous which how it conducts itself, that it will deport someone who had an explicit order to not be deported, right? To the country that they were most in danger, to a country that tortures people, like we know that they have. I don't know for certain what happened to him, but you know, that doesn't matter.
Drinking water out of the toilets that they have to do a number 2 in. You opposed the Iraq War. I assume you opposed Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib at the time. I don't quite remember. But this is torture. This is what Trump, the guy you say is not authoritarian, is doing. And he's doing it to American citizens.
Yeah,
he's doing it to American... Well, he's not giving due process to American citizens. He's chucked out American children out of this country.
Right, let me get a question
due process just earlier this year.
Let me get a question in. Do you agree that undocumented immigrants in America who then commit a crime should be deported?
Yes. Yes, that's mostly true. They should be deported if they commit a crime. Now you can take it a step further and say if a sanctuary jurisdiction decides through like a vote of its residents that their policy should be only this level of violent crime should be deported and this level we won't hold an ICE detainer or cooperate with ICE. It's like, well, I don't know. These people get justice anyways. If someone commits a bad crime, they stay here for a while. Like, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. They're staying in the federal prison system. And after they get their sentence, and they serve their time, then you deport them. But some people believe that's kind of a Fourth Amendment issue because guess what? They already were detained for as long as they were ordered to be detained. And to do any more than that, it's iffy in the Fourth Amendment, especially the whole detainer process. That's people's issues with it, even if it is a violent crime. So I respect sanctuary policies that don't cooperate to deport those people, but I think a lot of people, including myself, I think if you come here undocumented, you're under stricter guidelines. You have one chance if you want to work, stay under the radar. Stay out of law enforcement's eyes. And then you commit a crime. It's like, okay, you kind of blew your chance. So I don't feel bad for you at that point. But that's all I'll listen to here. They mostly talk about the same stuff. I didn't even listen to this whole thing. It's pretty interesting though. The first guy that they interviewed was also quite interesting, but not really relevant. I think it's more about Epstein, which I'm not interested in.